Welcome to the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, where you get multifamily investing made real. Learn from top players in the real estate investment world as they share their secrets with you and discover proven strategies on apartment investing that actually work. To learn more about Wheelbarrow Profits, visit jakeandgino.com, your one-stop shop for everything multifamily. Now to your hosts, Jake and Gino.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, the best-selling author, the G-Man, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
I'm doing good, Jake, and the father of 6. You keep forgetting that one.
Father of 6 kids and
right.
Retiring this week. We got it. Check and check. Today's guest is Marco Santarelli. Marco is an investor, author, and the founder of Norada Real Estate Investments, a nationwide provider of turnkey cash flow rental properties. Since launching the business in 2004, they have helped hundreds of real estate investors create wealth and cash flow through real estate. Today, we are jumping in head first to find out just how Marco has helped so many students. We are also going to pick his brain for best practices. There's no doubt that with over 10 years of experience teaching real estate, Marco will have some great advice for us. So without further ado, Marco, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate being here.
So why don't you just tell us about your real estate background and how you got started?
Well, it's a good question because it's always a matter of how far back do you want me to go. The reality is I jumped in headfirst into real estate when I turned 18 years old and I could qualify for financing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, I'm getting up there in age, so that's a long time ago. But I just knew real estate was the thing where wealth was created. My parents weren't wealthy. In fact, they both worked. In fact, my mother worked at one time 3 jobs. So, just to pay the mortgage. And but I knew other people were buying real estate and becoming wealthy to some degree. And it was just kind of common knowledge, at least for me it was. And so at 18, I bought a townhome. It needed some work. So I kind of gutted that property with the help of my uncle, who was a carpenter. And together we renovated this property. I put a sign out on the lawn. I took applications. I screened the quote-unquote tenants. I didn't really know what I was doing because, again, I jumped in head first, and I never read a book or took a course. But I ended up leasing this property and self-managing it for a number of years. And looking back, everything was textbook. But I didn't know it at the time. But I got the bug. And so from there, I went and got my real estate license. And yes, I was chauffeuring people around in the back of my car selling real estate, but my intention was to make extra cash to invest in real estate and also apply my commissions towards the purchase of additional real estate. So, I bought another condo and things just kind of went from there. But then to fast forward to 1998, and I apologize if I'm giving you a really long answer to this question.
No, it's great.
No, go ahead.
But this is the important part here. You fast forward to 2003, and as we were talking offline, I was involved in a startup, a .com type of business in 1999 and 2000, and unfortunately the NASDAQ imploded in March of 2000, 2001, I can't remember. So at that point, we had lost all our venture capital funding, and I was wondering, okay, what do I really want to do? I don't want to go back and do what I was doing with this previous company elsewhere, but I always had a love and an affection for real estate. So I took 2 years off to figure that out. What do I want to do? And I came to realize that everything that was important to me in my life came to an intersection which was called real estate, investing, wealth creation, helping other people, et cetera, et cetera. But the interesting story is how that happened. I was sitting at my desk at my computer in mid-2003, and I got an email from Robert G. Allen. And I'm sure you guys know who he is, but for your listeners, Robert Allen is a very famous author, and he's considered one of the godfathers of nothing down real estate. So if you go to Amazon and you just type in Robert Allen or Robert G. Allen, you'll see that he's the author and co-author of about, probably 20 books. He's most well known for his Nothing Down book, and I can't remember the name of his first book. I think it's Road to Wealth. Yeah, The Road to Wealth. So I get this email, and they're putting on this seminar, this free 2-day seminar on real estate investing up in Orange County, California. So I went to this thing, and there were probably 1,500 people in this massive ballroom at this hotel near Disneyland.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, it was very interesting. The speaker, a guy named Glenn, had you riveted to your seat. I mean, he was so engaging and so interesting that if you had to go to the bathroom, you were not going. You were waiting until the break. And he really got a lot of people hooked on real estate and investing and whatnot. So a bunch of people were running to the back of the room at the end of the first day, credit cards in hand, and they were shelling out a minimum of $15,000 to buy these 5 or 6 workshops or boot camps that were actually not even local. They were in different cities around the country. So not only were you shelling out $15,000 to as much as $35,000, but you also had to pay for the flight and accommodations and food to get to these different locations. So I pulled out my credit card and I did the same thing. And I went through these workshops, which started at the end of 2003. But the interesting thing that happened is, as I looked around, people were still wondering how to get started, how to invest, and they were coming to me asking me these questions because they knew at that time that I had started investing like crazy in 2004. In fact, between 2004 and 2005, I had accumulated 84 units in real estate. And so I was getting all these questions, and that's how I launched this business. It was an opportunity that, on one hand, fell in my lap, but on the other hand, I identified a need out there where real estate investors didn't have necessarily the time or the expertise or the knowledge or the team of people that they really need to be able to get off the ground and do what they need to do. And their hopes were taking these courses that they would learn how to do that, or they would find a shortcut or something to make it easier. I think statistically, maybe only 5 to 10% of those people actually started buying real estate and investing and doing something. But the majority didn't, because they still needed more help or guidance or a mentor or whatever it is. But that's how the business was born. So that's how I got back into real estate investing. And that was the platform for me to launch, our Turnkey investment company.
Marco, what do you invest in?
So me personally, I've invested in everything from distressed single-family homes. I've done land banking, which is, for your listeners' sake, is just basically the accumulation of buildable lots where you just sit on them and speculate on the appreciation, and then you flip them to builders later on, all the way up to small apartment buildings. The largest property I'd purchased was a 40-unit apartment building, and of all of that, I would say that my favorite, and this is something I tell clients all the time. I mean, even our investment counselors, we share the same stories. We sell single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. That's kind of our stable of property, but my personal favorite is single-family homes. They're easy to understand. They're the most easily understood. Tenants prefer to live in a single-family home as opposed to something that has, shared walls with other tenants. They're the most liquid of all real estate. It's easier to sell a single-family home than it is to sell a duplex or sell a fourplex. Hundreds and thousands of people have built up their portfolios and become wealthy off of single-family homes. So it is just a tried and true form or type of real estate. So that's why I like it. That's what I invest in. That's what I'm investing in today. It's just the 3 and 4 bedroom single-family homes.
What changes have you seen in the marketplace itself?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of change, especially since, the rapid price appreciation or price inflation that we've seen, from when I jumped back in 2003 up until, the quote-unquote housing market imploded in, 06, 07. Mm-hmm. So, those changes brought in new laws and regulations where it made it more difficult for lenders to lend, and there's more checks and balances. So, that was a game changer, because when credit dries up, which is what happened in 2007, it's harder to get loans. So you have less demand because fewer people can buy real estate. They can't qualify. And that demand, it's just simple economics, supply and demand. You pull that demand out from under you, and now all of a sudden you have a glut of supply. Prices come down, and this is exactly what we saw across the country. We saw all these real estate markets deflate, and I mean, in some markets, we've seen over a 50% decline in property values. So that was a huge change, that I've noticed over the last 10, 12, 13 years. And some of us have learned from that, but many people have not, and they're repeating the same lessons. There are still people that are plowing their hard-earned investment capital in markets like the coastal markets of California, Miami, the coastal markets of New Jersey, New York. These are bubble markets. These are cyclical markets. So they depreciate quickly, they appreciate quickly, and they fluctuate. They go up and down like a roller coaster. Now, if you're good at timing the market, you can get in and get out. You can make some good capital gains. But to me, that's a speculative way of investing. My focus and for our clients, we always focus on cash flow. Make sure you invest in good markets that are prudent and cash flow from day one. And that's one of the major lessons that I've taken away from from the last 10, 12, 13 years is if you're going to invest in markets that make sense, invest for cash flow. The appreciation will come along with it. You'll gain equity as time goes by. So I think that was one of the huge lessons. And
I feel like I'm talking to Gino
changes
right now.
Really?
Yeah. Hey, you touched on the financing. How are you financing your single-family homes? Community banks, or are you using something else? Or
you talking about me personally, or
sure,
just
yeah.
Well, right now I'm having to use a portfolio lender because I'm sure your listeners know, but with conventional financing, you kind of tap out after 10 loans. So once you've got 10 mortgages on your credit report, you typically don't qualify for conventional financing anymore. Now, there are some advanced strategies to work around that, which we use with our clients. But generally speaking, you're going to be working with some sort of portfolio lender. But yeah, I mean that's what most investors do when they start building larger portfolios. Sometimes you could use commercial loans, but yeah, portfolio lending is really where it's at.
Marco, what markets are you looking at right now to invest in?
Well, I like a lot of markets. So, where I'm investing is Kansas City, Missouri, and I've chosen that market for a number of reasons. I just love the market. There's some great product there. There's a great demographic. There's growth. There are jobs. There's expansion. There's just a laundry list of reasons why I like that market. But a lot of those things can be said and are also true for many, if not all, of the other markets that we operate in. But I chose Kansas City. I like the price point. I like the quality of the rehabbed product that we have in that market. I think long term, I mean, it's what I call a linear market. It's not going to appreciate or depreciate, crazily or rapidly as the economy and the local fundamentals change. So I feel like there's a lot of stability in that market, and we're seeing a rent to value ratio of about 1 to 1.1%, which means a $100,000 property will rent for $1,000 a month. That's a 1% RV ratio. That's the number that I like. That to me is a balanced market. If you can get more than that, that's great. It makes sense to go down to about 0.8% as an RV ratio. By comparison, just to contrast, if you look at a lot of the coastal markets, along the coast of California,
I was just looking at
yeah. I mean, you're looking at 0.3, 0.4, maybe 0.5% of an RV ratio. So not only does the rate of return drop drastically, it doesn't make sense from a numbers perspective, but the real estate is so expensive. So you've got a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house in these markets where your 20% down payment is going to be $60,000 to $100,000. You could take that same $60,000 to $100,000 and deploy it, invest it in Indy or Kansas City or Birmingham or one of the other markets that we're in, and get 4 to 5 times the number of properties for a larger portfolio and have actually higher cash flow than you would with that one single property.
That's a way to scale up. That's a great way to scale your business. You have more leverage that way. I totally agree with that. I was in Rochester, New York about 5 years ago, and I was doing the same thing with duplexes. And it's just the type of market that you want to be in because you can really cash flow. It's not going to appreciate. It really isn't. I bought the house for $34,000. 7 years later, it was worth $40,000. So, I mean, did it appreciate a touch, but not much? But your strategy is to cash flow on these properties. I totally agree with that. What do you do with managing? Obviously, you can't self-manage these. You get a management company to manage them for you?
Yeah, there are investors who do self-manage their properties from a distance, but they're far and few between. Most of the time, you're going to hire a property manager. Our recommendation, and one of my 10 rules of successful real estate investing is always use a property manager. The thing is unless you're a property manager yourself and you understand the tenant landlord laws and you know how to deal with tenants and properly screen and qualify them, it's really worth paying 8 or 9 or 10% to a professional property management company that will just manage the asset and take care of things for you. And that way you could spend your time with your family and your career and looking for more investment property.
Marco, your typical client, are they investors, full-time investors, or are they people who are employed, such as doctors, lawyers? What do you typically cater to?
Yes and yes. It's really all over the board. We have clients that are first-time real estate newbies. They're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they're buying their first investment property. To people who are professionals like doctors, lawyers, business owners, they're busy people, and they really need a turnkey solution. And then some of our clients are full-time real estate investors. I mean, they're involved in different aspects of real estate, but they still build their portfolio and they utilize the resources of a company like ours. So it doesn't really fit into one specific box. It's really a spectrum of people all having the same, desire to build a real estate portfolio and build their cash flow, build their wealth, but they're all coming from different places in life.
Why don't you define turnkey for the listeners out there that may not be familiar with that term?
Okay, that's a great question, and here's why. A lot of people out there throw the term around. It wasn't really used all that much when I first launched this business in late 2003. But today it's used a lot, and I don't know if I had a lot to do with that because I do push it. I have been pushing it, marketing it pretty hard over the years. But real estate agents and a lot of investors will talk about a property being turnkey, but really what they're saying is, I want a property that's rent ready. So a real estate agent, for example, and I'm not necessarily recommending working with a real estate agent. There are some good ones out there, but the majority of them don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand real estate investors. They don't really know how to work with an investor. In fact, I've come across many real estate agents that don't even know how to look at a pro forma. They don't know how to look at income and expenses, which is absolutely crazy. But anyway, most of what people look at are what are rent-ready properties, meaning that you could just pull a property off the MLS and it doesn't need any repairs or maintenance today. There may be deferred maintenance items, but it's not newly renovated and it's certainly not new construction. So it's a property and it's habitable. So you could move a tenant into that property, lease it, generate cash flow. So that's rent ready. A turnkey property, as we define it, is a property in a market that makes sense, in a neighborhood that makes sense, that is new construction or newly renovated. It is tenant occupied, so it's cash flowing from day one. It's under professional property management. That's the core of it right there. There's a few other aspects to it. But for me, turnkey means a performing asset generating cash flow that has no deferred maintenance, and that is a hassle-free investment experience. That's how I define turnkey. So there's no formal definition in the industry, unfortunately. But you just need to raise the bar and define it for your business as we've done, and that's how I look at turnkey. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, you are. And I was just, because it gets thrown around with the triple net leases and stuff too. And I was just wanting to hear, where you were coming from. And it sounds like you're saying, guys, let's get out there, create the life that we want, right? Get something that's passive, get something that's under good management, and that way you can do what you want to do and create a life while your real estate's earning for you. And I think it was great. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah, so that, for your listeners' sake, I mean, that's how I would go about, talking about turnkey. Whether you're working with, whether you're doing it on your own, you're acquiring, rehabbing your own properties, or you're working with a real estate agent, or you're working with a turnkey provider like our company, or whatever it may be. I mean, even some property management companies will have clients that go to them and say, "Hey, I want to sell my property. If you know somebody, let me know." They're not in that business, but they may be, in a position where they're needing to sell or unload a property for a client. So, just have, at the end of the day, just define what you're looking for. And this is what we talk to clients about all the time. Our first phone call with a client is usually 45 minutes to an hour. We call it a strategy session. But, we want to understand a person's goals, and from the goals we'll derive a criteria. And it's unbelievable. Most people don't have a criteria. They don't know what they want to invest in. They don't even know where they want to invest in many cases. But once you've defined that criteria, it becomes infinitely easier to identify a property that will be a good fit for your portfolio, because you've just got that checklist right there to know what is good and what isn't good for you.
Wow, that's great advice. What kind of social media do you use to get those clients?
Our clients come from all over the place. It's not necessarily social media that we're using. We're on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and we get some traction from those sites. But we get a lot of referral business. We get a lot of organic traffic from people just on Google or Bing or whatever. It comes from different sources, some JV relationships and whatnot. But yeah, social media, I don't think there's a lot of traffic that we get from social media, maybe 5 or 10%.
Well, you know where I found you? I found you on Bigger Pockets. So that's, I consider that being sort of social media-ish to me. I think it's a great site for investors to get on there and to start networking and throw out those ideas for people,
Yeah, it's a good site. I'm active on that site on and off. My qualm, if you will, with Bigger Pockets is that this is completely anecdotal, but my observation is that about 80% of the people that are on that website are rehabbers, wholesalers, flippers. They're kind of in the active real estate space, or they're lenders. It's a very small minority, maybe 20% in my estimation, that are what I call passive real estate investors. Hence the reason I launched my podcast called Passive Real Estate Investing, is because I looked at Bigger Pockets and I said, geez, there's really a lot of people who are preaching that a real estate investor, and I've had arguments with people on the website with this. They're trying to tell me, I'll just use a first name, a guy named Ben. That's just one example. They're telling me that a real estate investor is someone who is rolling up their sleeves and going out in the trenches and finding a distressed seller or finding a distressed property, that they're going to pick up at a discount, and then they're going to put in some work to fix it up, whether it's minor or major, and then they're going to lease it or maybe have a property manager do that. But that's an investment for a lot of these people. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because you can still accomplish your investment goals, your retirement goals, your financial goals by having someone do most of the work for you, buying a truly turnkey investment property. And it's hard to argue with a lot of these people because they're just not coming from that space.
That is a waste of time.
Marco,
it is.
My partner likes to call it the I'm a mentality. I say this on almost every podcast. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I love the way Jake says that. But it's true. Everyone on Bigger Pockets, they want to do everything. And at the end of the day, you get nothing done if you want to do everything yourself. It's not possible. You're not efficient. And what I call those type of people, they're really landlords. They're not investors. They're not asset managers. They're landlords. And what happens is they turn into what we call mom and pops. They just eventually will burn out because they cannot do everything by themselves. If they don't build that team, they're just going to get stuck in that rut. And like the other thing that Jake likes to call it, he likes to call it the death spiral. You just get into that spiral where you just can't get out of your own way. And then you're like, well, real estate's not for me, because you went at it from a different angle, from a different perspective, not from the Marco perspective of, listen, this is really an investment. It's all about the numbers. It's not about grabbing a hammer and swinging a hammer and, 2x4s. And it's not about that. It's about making sure that the numbers work.
And creating the lifestyle that you're looking for. That's why you get into it, to create a lifestyle, create passive income, and get out of that crap, get out of the rat race, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. A lot of people just don't have the time, the cash, the team, the resources, the knowledge. A turnkey solution like ours solves all of those problems. But hey, if you've got the time, the capital, the resources, the team, whatever, great, go out and do it. If that's something you enjoy, go and do it. I'm not, it's not wrong.
That's
right.
I agree with you.
It's just not for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. That's not the only way to get into the business. And on that website, it seems as if, because that's what I keep preaching to Jake. I'm like, Jake, a lot of these guys are fixing and flipping, and that's not really our model. Unless you're going to get a chunk of cash and put that into a multi or put that into an apartment building, it's just very difficult to resonate, because a lot of those guys aren't even coming from that. They just have that small mentality of, let me just do a little house here and a little house there, and it's very hard to resonate. Now that I've been preaching about it, what is your best real estate investing advice or tip for our listeners?
My biggest real estate investing tip? Good question.
Or just generally best advice?
Well, if you're talking about habits, my suggestion is to read a lot. I call my first rule of successful real estate investing is to educate yourself, build knowledge. Knowledge is the most valuable asset. It's more valuable than gold, than real estate, than anything else, because that knowledge is the new currency. The people who are going to become successful and wealthy going forward are the people who educate themselves and continually learn and read a lot and watch videos. They do what they need to do to build up their knowledge, because if you continually educate yourself, you're going to have the ability to identify good deals, bad deals. You'll go from being a good investor to a great investor, and you'll see opportunities that you wouldn't have seen before. And in fact, you'll see opportunities that most people don't even identify with. They just walk around, every day in a daze, or they're asleep. So just educate yourself, build knowledge, read a lot. That would be my success tip or habit.
Well, to piggyback off that, what would you say your favorite book is then?
That's a very, very difficult question, and it's almost impossible to answer, because there is no one favorite, at least not for me. The thing is, I literally have hundreds of books, and I'm staring at one of my bookshelves right now that's probably got 150 books on it, and I'm trying to think, geez, what's my favorite book? I would say, since I don't have a favorite, I would say that for the general person looking to invest in real estate or just build up their knowledge, I would say the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, like the Rich Dad series of books, is a great place to start. Because if you need a foundational book, or if you're just getting started, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great book. If you need something a little more advanced, his Guide to Investing or Cash Flow Quadrant is going to be very helpful. I mean, it's one of those aha books. People, read and they just realize, oh my God, I never learned this in school, and the way I look at things today, it makes no sense. We're living in a different world. It's a whole different paradigm. It's a different economy, and it's a different mentality that you need to have. And so it really helps to put all of that in perspective, and it's a good frame of reference, and it's a great foundation. From there, you could read all kinds of other books. Gary Keller has some great books. He's got 3 in the series. Gary Keller's the guy who started Keller Williams Real Estate.
Yep.
So that's what I would recommend. I mean, I don't really have one particular favorite book, but there's a lot of them out there.
I think to your point, the reason Rich Dad is so good for people in the beginning is because it's almost a philosophical perspective. It's the reason why you should be doing this, right? It doesn't give you the meat and potatoes as to how, but it says this is why you should be doing this. So I think that's great. What about your best deal? What was the best deal that you've done and why?
Well, again, that was a hard question to really put my finger on. I would say one of them is a condo I bought in California. Now, let me qualify this. I bought this condo at the right time, and it's not that I was trying to time the market. That's very, very difficult to do. Very few people know how to time a real estate market because it's usually 6 to 12 months after the fact that you have a confirmation of a change in a market before you know definitively where you're at in a particular market cycle. But I had purchased a condo in January of 1999, and that condo in California was $152,500. And that condo went up to about $450,000. And I'm not implying, it's a huge move.
Yes.
But again, I'm not implying that you or your listeners invest for speculative reasons.
You'll take it though.
Well, no, of course you'll take it. But I always say that cash flow is the glue that holds your real estate deal together. So that property has to make sense the day you buy it. So if you have a positive cash flow, net, if you have a positive cash flow the day you buy that property, then it makes sense. As long as it's in a good market, in a good neighborhood, you've licked 80% of what you need to take care of. And so the appreciation was just icing on the cake. That I was able to lease that property, and I self-managed that one because I live here, and it generated positive cash flow. Not a lot, but some. And I just went for the ride in California, and I didn't do that on purpose. It's just what the market did. I didn't know it was going to. I mean, most people didn't know that these real estate markets around the country were going to explode like they did post 1999. But easy monetary policy, low rates, these easy qualify loans like no income, no asset, the Nina loans or the Ninja loans, no income, no assets, no job. That just increased the demand for real estate exponentially, and that demand pushed prices up to astronomical levels. So I just went for the ride. I mean, it was the accidental millionaire type of scenario. It's not something you could have planned in advance.
Well, you're doing the right things in the front end, and you were rewarded for it, so it's great.
Yeah.
What about your worst deal, and why?
My worst deal? Well, this probably shows some of the stupid things I've done many, many years ago, and paid the price for it and learned from it, and then I was able to pass this information on to this experience to other investors. In other words, our clients, to save them the grief. But there were some properties that I had purchased in late 2003 and early 2004 where I thought I'd shortcut the due diligence process and forego having inspections done on properties. And I thought, okay, it's cash flow positive and it's in good enough condition. But after I closed escrow, all these deferred maintenance items started coming up, and it was just a nightmare. It ended up costing me a lot of money to cure the problems of foregoing inspections and doing my due diligence on the property. So I kind of got mesmerized and married to the numbers. The numbers, were extremely attractive, but it was a money pit. There was just so much to do in that property when you lifted the hood up and looked down that you should never forego having inspections done on your properties.
So that would be your second best advice. Always get the property inspected, right?
Yes, always. Always do your due diligence. Yeah, know the market. You don't need to be an expert, but know the market, know the neighborhood, talk to the property manager or property managers, get to know them. I mean, these are things
I think that's real good advice too, because sometimes these people will just spew, and you can get some really good stuff from them. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's now a methodical process. I mean, we have literally a system step by step that we walk people through so they don't skip any of these things. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to make mistakes. But again, if you work with someone, if you have a mentor or a guide, or a team that has that experience, that knows where the pitfalls are, and they can help you navigate through any landmines and pitfalls, then you'll be very successful. You can't do it all by yourself.
Sure. No, I think that's really good stuff. One more question for you. What projects are you excited about right now?
We have kind of a two-pronged project, if you will, in Kansas City, and this is one of the reasons why I'm very excited about Kansas City. I mean, we've identified that market as being a great market to invest in short-term and long-term, and so we not only have some great turnkey investment properties in that market, that are newly renovated, have great tenants, great management, etc. But on the other side of the coin, we also have this new program. It's only about a little over a year old. We just call it the private lending program. And this is not a pitch for it. We kind of limit the number of people we bring into it anyway. But people who have cash, 100,000 or more, we bring them in as our lenders. So instead of using hard money to acquire these properties and renovate them, we're actually bringing investors in that will invest their capital. They basically put it into escrow. We use it as a revolving line of credit, and we use those funds to acquire and renovate properties, and we're paying them as much as 15. Typically, it's averaging out to 15% annual interest, simple interest. So they're very happy, and they have a first lien position on the property, so they're well secured because there's no other lien. And we have a very good LTV, like a loan to value, so there's lots of margin or equity in there for their safety. So that just kind of fuels the operations that we have in the Kansas City market, because there's a fair amount of demand for the properties there.
It sounds like you're making it really easy for your students to get in, and then the investors as well. It sounds like a great situation for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's a simple program. I mean, there's no rocket science there. It's done every day. I mean, people are investing in notes and funding real estate transactions every day of the year, in this country. So this is just a program that makes it simple to do.
Sure.
Marco, do you find it hard to get people as far as debt? I guess that's just debt. Do you find it hard to raise money without offering equity, or do you find it easy to raise money?
Well, if you're offering equity, then I mean, often you're going to have a partnership. You're bringing someone in who's a co-owner of that property. That's a different model. I always like to say there's 101 ways to make money in real estate. The truth is there's probably 1,001 ways to make money in real estate, because you can be very creative and you can structure deals in so many different ways. There are people out there that will give you a much lower rate of return, 4, 6, 8% with a percentage of the equity when they flip the property. I've considered doing that, but it kind of muddied the water. We just wanted a very simple, clean program with an attractive rate of return. And I was considering doing something in the 10 to 12% range, but then at the last minute, I just decided to throw it out there at 15%, and that raised a lot of eyebrows. People really took note, and it got a lot of attention. So I've left it at that 15%, and I've been told by people to reduce it. They said I'm giving away too much, but everybody's happy at the end of the day. Everybody's making money, so I'm just going to leave it as it is.
That's great. I mean, imagine having your money in the self-directed IRA, getting 1 or 2%, and then you come along and give them 15%. That's a home run for them. That is really an awesome deal for them.
Yeah, and self-directed accounts. I'm not going to bash them. There's a place for them, and some people don't have a choice. They've got their 401k and they've had an IRA for a long time, so you really can't take your money out. Well, for some people it makes sense to take it out, pay the penalty and take the hit. But this is just my personal opinion. I wouldn't be putting money into a retirement account today. I think there's too much political risk and headwind today with people who have money in these financial institutions, because look at what's going on around the world. We've got these bail-ins, we've got negative interest rates, we've got all this political risk, economic risk. Who's to stop, the powers that be or the politicians from dipping their hands into, your retirement account?
Or you get a 401k account. Who's to say that in 20 years taxes don't go up, right? So, you're deferring those taxes, but down the road they could be higher. You never know. So,
well, that's likely. I mean, on the trajectory that we're on right now,
yep,
the odds of the taxes being higher as opposed to being lower are pretty good. I'll put my money on the taxes being higher.
Same here.
Marco, you're talking to two guys that rated their 401ks. We took the hits, and looking back at it, I know Jake is probably a real big proponent of this, but it all depends about the deal. And I mean, we were just fortunate to get into these really large deals. And if we're going to leave our money in a 401k and let it grow at 3 or 4%, or try to get our money, take the 10% hit with the cost segregation that we have, we're not paying taxes anyway on the income. We're just taking a 10% hit. I think the opportunity cost of that money was just so great that we had to do it. So it's definitely, individual. Everyone's got to make their own decision on it. But I mean, if you've got a great deal in front of you and there's no other way, I mean, that's what we did. We ended up rating it. So it worked for us,
Yeah, probably a smart move on your part.
Marco, really good stuff. I took a lot of notes, and one of the things that really stood out to me, Gino and I do larger multifamily deals, and I've never really invested in single-family homes, but you're selling me on it here. I mean, easy to understand. I think for people getting started, that was a great point. It can be very liquid, and therefore helping people create wealth. I jotted that down because I thought that was very, very good. The advice that you gave about educate yourself, totally agree with that. For people getting started, Rich Dad, definitely a great book, and congrats on that condo deal, $150,000 to over $400. Man, you knocked that one out of the park. So it's a good job there. How can people get a hold of you?
Probably the best way is just through our website. Well, there's actually two of them, but our main website, our real estate website, is noradarealestate.com. Norada, if people don't know how to spell it, is Norada, noradarealestate.com. The sister website is it's easier to remember, passiverealestateinvesting.com. And that's really the podcast website, but they link to each other.
Well, listen, Marco, thank you very much. It was great having you.
Thanks, Mark.
Jake, Gino, you guys are great. Thank you for having me as a guest on your show.
Take care.
We trust that you enjoyed the Wheelbarrow Profits podcast. Visit jakeandgino.com, your one-stop shop for everything multifamily. See you next time when Jake and Gino share more of their investing secrets with you.